Hello and welcome to the F1 News Zone, the show we round up all the biggest stories in Formula 1 right now. We are currently in the Miami Grand Prix weekend, so here are the biggest stories from the Sunshine State and beyond. Formula 1 has revealed the Madrid Grand Prix venue, the Madring, and yes, it is terrible. The FIA are set to loosen the F1 swearing ban and review all of the action from Saturday in Miami, including both the sprint race and qualifying session. If you're watching on YouTube, skip to the timestamps in the video description to watch the story that you are most interested in. So, without further ado, let's dive in. I always try and start the week out in a positive manner. Begin as you mean to go on is very much a good way to go about things. But after seeing the official onboard that has been released from the Madring, which is the Madrid Spanish Grand Prix venue, I am not in a good mood, really, after seeing that. It is an absolute joke. Now, we have seen some kind of independent renders of this, people going on games like R-Factor and iRacing and stuff like that, and just basically going on a racing simulator and going on what the circuit will probably look like, but we didn't know all the details of it. However, now the Madring, I know what they've done. They've combined Madrid and Ring to make Madring, but I mean, in English, that sounds ridiculous, I'll be honest. Yeah, not a great name, but, hey, I would like the Madring if the Madring looked good, but unfortunately, from the official onboard we've seen, it looks terrible. It looks absolutely uninspiring, flat as a pancake for the most part, and I was watching the onboard and I was thinking, well, there's actually a pretty long straight here, so maybe overtaking might not be so difficult, but in the official onboard, go and watch the onboard. Some sources such as Autosport have actually released this. I mean, guys, I would show you it, but at the end of the day, I can't, unfortunately. Copyright would definitely get flagged for that, especially since I'm not very glowing in my terms of describing it, to be honest, on top of that too. But look at the actual video, right? They nearly lose it. The person that's driving this racing sim actually nearly loses it through the chicane. There's a chicane just after the longest straight on the track, which will probably be the main overtaking point, probably the only overtaking point around this circuit, and they almost lose it. They lose the back end and have to really get some opposite lock on and probably put the brakes on to actually complete the corner without spinning out. In fact, I think they probably spun out a few times trying it, and that was their best attempt. So if that's anything to go by, this track is just going to be downright unsafe. So unfortunately, it looks like the Madring is going to happen. They wouldn't release this on board if it wasn't going to happen. They've had Carlos Sainz there in this little break, kind of looking over the circuit design and giving, his input on it and everything like that. Unfortunately, despite the rumours of, them not being able to finance it and everything, it looks like it is going to go ahead. Now, interestingly, the Spanish Grand Prix venue before this, and for this year actually as well, again, thankfully, is the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya. But interestingly, it is on the calendar for next year. Barcelona has a contract with Formula 1 to run a race in 2026, but it will not be known as the Spanish Grand Prix. That is going to be the Madring. Now, there are 3 races that are currently uncontracted for 2026, but do have a race in 2025. These 3 are Imola, which is the home of the Emilia-Romagna Grand Prix, Las Vegas, and also Mexico City. Now, there are 24 spots on the calendar. Formula 1 will fill these up, absolutely no doubt about that, but which circuits will actually be on there, which one will potentially miss out, it's a bit of a mystery, and I'm kind of torn between thinking which it's going to be. Now, you might think, well, Formula 1 is never going to get rid of Las Vegas, and I'd understand that viewpoint, but honestly, I think they might, because it's not been making money, and if Formula 1 is not making money, they are not going to go there. So I think there's a genuine chance Las Vegas might drop off the calendar with that in mind. It has not been a financial success, and it's obviously very, very unpopular locally over in Las Vegas. Mexico City has had some finance issues for a little bit. They've been hinting about dropping off the calendar. They obviously changed it from the Mexican Grand Prix to the Mexico City Grand Prix because of naming right issues or something like that, or maybe it was just to promote the local city there. I don't know, but it doesn't really scream of reliability when you're changing the name of your race like that. Sergio Perez is no longer on the Formula 1 grid. However, he is heavily rumoured to be coming back in 2026. So I think Mexico will probably stay, to be honest. And then there's Emilia-Romagna. Now, that might not drop off the calendar entirely. It might actually rotate with Barcelona. Now, that has been hinted at. You know, this race rotation scheme is coming in. We know that Belgium, Spa-Francorchamps, is going to be on the calendar every other year. I think beginning from 2028. I think that's the first year that we miss of Spa, if I'm not mistaken. So that could very much rotate with Imola, Barcelona. And I think that's the most likely option. However, we'll have to see what happens. If Formula One feels that Las Vegas is not cutting the mustard, then they might actually go somewhere else. The Chicago Grand Prix, that has been trademarked by Formula One in the United States. So it's possible that if we lose Las Vegas, somewhere like Chicago could come in instead, which, you know, don't judge a book till you actually see the book's cover, at least. Maybe not judge it by the cover itself, but that's not looking too great either. I don't really like the look of that either, the proposed circuit, the rumoured proposed circuit. But yeah, the actual proposed circuit, the circuit is coming in for Spain, looks downright trash, unfortunately. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments below, guys. I want to hear what you have to say about this. I mean, have you seen the onboard? Do you think it looks good? I think it looks terrible personally, but I want to hear what you have to say about this as well. So I heard a little news announcement about this the other day. The good old swearing ban in Formula One has been loosened a little bit amid more pressure from the drivers, and as it should be in my opinion. You know, I don't think these drivers should be prevented from really truly speaking their own mind. We don't want them to be honest. We're always going on about Formula One drivers being robots and boring and towing the party line. Well, this is just going to make them do that even more, of course, if that is something that you think is going to be a problem. But let's have a look at what's been said here, guys. Full news announcement here on the F1Chronicle.com as always. Mohammed Ben Sulayem, the highly controversial president of F1's governing body, looks set to hit reverse gear on a draconian new penalty laid out in the International Sporting Code. As a furious Max Verstappen was taking off his helmet in Parc Fermé in Jeddah, he was immediately approached by Ben Sulayem, and then they were involved in a brief but tense exchange. Verstappen, who served community service over the winter for saying the F word in a FIA press conference last year, was incensed about his penalty for cutting the first corner of the race. However, he point blank refused to discuss it with the media. He said, "The problem is that I cannot share my opinion about it because I might get penalised," said the quadruple world champion. It is not just fellow Formula One drivers who has joined the Dutchman in lambasting the clampdown against bad behaviour, with new penalties involving tens of thousands of euros, docked points and even race bans, but also competitors in other FIA sanctioned series, including the WRC. But Verstappen's increasing reluctance to speak to the media hit a crescendo after Jeddah, where he referred specifically to the Sporting Code's draconian new Appendix B. "You can't be critical in any form that might harm or danger. Let me get the sheet out. There's a lot of lines," the 27-year-old quipped. So amid ongoing turmoil inside the Ben Sulayem-led regime and the increasing likelihood that he will be challenged in the presidential elections later this year, the FIA president now looks to be hitting reverse gear. Following constructive feedback from drivers. Constructive feedback. I mean, that's one way of putting it. That's very diplomatic of you. "Across our 7 FIA World Championships, I am considering making improvements to Appendix B," he declared on Instagram. How about just take it out? I think that's probably the best thing to do, really, but there we go. "As a former rally driver, I understand the demands they face better than most. But you still put through the law, mate. You should know better. Humans make the rules and humans can improve the rules. Humans can also get rid of the problem." I mean, this guy, honestly, if he does get rid of it, if he does get rid of the rule, he's going to be like, "Look at the problem that I have solved. Look how much better I have made things," when he's the one who caused the problem in the first place. Yeah, good job, mate. This principle of continuous improvement is something I have always believed in, and it's at the heart of all we do here at the FIA, unless it's criticising MBS himself. Then he doesn't like it. There's no such thing as constructive criticism when it comes to him, because, yeah, he doesn't like that. By listening to one another and working collaboratively, we continue to drive a positive future for the sport we all care about so deeply. Meanwhile, former F1 driver Ralf Schumacher thinks that at least some of Verstappen's anger after the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix was not FIA related. "I think he was more angry with himself," the German told Sky Deutschland, "because he almost never makes mistakes and he knew exactly that a bad start meant that he had to take a shortcut and stay in front, and it really bothers him, so it didn't work out. Well, you know, I don't know about that, but it definitely doesn't help that you can't express yourself, you know. It's just, yeah, I mean, this whole thing's a joke. You guys know my opinion about it. It's good that they can now swear in the car again and not get in trouble for that. But it is not good that outside of the car, they are still very limited in what they can say and what they can't say. And that does apply to other series like WRC. I mean, I think they had like a strike recently, the WRC people. I must admit, I don't really watch WRC. I haven't for a long time now. I haven't watched it since the Loeb days back in the day, you know. But, you know, it's a mess. They just need to take it out. I don't just revert back to what, you know, you did. You know, as they say when there's a controversial video online, there's always time to delete this. The best time to not put that appendix in was before they actually tried putting it in, so it never came into effect. But the second best time to do it is right now. But we'll see if they do. If he is going to be challenging the presidential elections, which I hope he is. I mean, Susie Wolff has been rumoured. A few people have been rumoured to actually, run against him and stuff. And I hope they do. And if he fears losing his position, because I think he would do, potentially, then he's going to want to go on the charm offensive and try and be like, look, it's not so bad under my rule, is it, after all? And then if he gets in again, he'll put all the rules back, potentially. Potentially. I'm not saying he will, but I'm saying he could do that. But yeah, anyway. What do you guys think? Do you think this rule needs to stay? Do you think it needs to go? I think it needs to go. Get it in the bin. Chuck it away. It's trash. It needs to stay. It needs to stay out of our sport. F1 drivers should be allowed to speak their mind. They should be honest. We want them to be people, not PR robots, like I said at the start of the video. But yeah, your thoughts in the comments below. Oh, Mr. Wolff is not happy. He has slammed the joke agenda for the recent F1 Commission meeting. What has happened? What has got Toto Wolff making printouts of data and slamming his fist on the table, throwing them headphones across the room? What has got him absolutely enraged here? Let's have a look at this on the F1Chronicle.com, guys. And in all seriousness, I don't know how angry he actually is, but he doesn't sound very happy about this. That is for sure. Toto Wolff has slammed as a joke something that is on the agenda for Thursday's meeting of the F1 Commission. Earlier in April, F1 authorities and engine makers, including top car makers' CEOs, met to discuss the radical proposal to step away from the controversial and revolutionary 2026 engine rules and consider a return to V10 power. Particular concern has been raised about the 50-50 split between traditional engine power and electrical power. The FAA has gone away and done their research, and I think what they want to do desperately is avoid a lot of this lifting and coasting in the Grand Prix itself, which is going to not be particularly good for the sport and hugely frustrating for the drivers, said Red Bull team boss Christian Horner. And that's something we saw a lot, particularly in the early days of the V6 era, of course, as well. So I can imagine we could see something like that potentially again. But over time, of course, it's become increasingly rare as the teams have got on top of the engine regulations. And that's something that I think would definitely happen with this new 2026 regs eventually as well. However, some suspect that those pushing the V10 idea the hardest, Red Bull and Ferrari, are simply worried about their 2026 power units not being competitive. In contrast, Horner said in Saudi Arabia, Mercedes seem very confident about the work they've done for next year. It is true, however, that Audi and Honda are the biggest supporters of increasing the hybrid nature of the F1 power units, arguing that without the 2026 rule change, they would have never entered or stayed on the grid at all. At the earlier April meeting, it was decided that F1 would proceed as planned with the 2026 rules, although the FAA declared that all parties agreed to continue discussions on the future technical direction of the sport. However, Mercedes boss and team co-owner Wolff is surprised that the engine discussion features prominently on the agenda of Thursday's F1 Commission meeting. Reading the agenda of the F1 Commission is almost as hilarious as reading some of the comments that I see on Twitter or American politics, he said. It is believed that Red Bull and Ferrari have lobbied for Thursday's decision to include the potential of a vote on perhaps adjusting the 50-50 ratio to diminish the prominence of electrical power, but Horner denies the claim. It's not something that we've lobbied or asked for, he said. If they are doing it in the interests of the sport, then you've got to support it. Wolff, however, is furious. I really want to protect ourselves and make no comment, but it's a joke. He says, making a comment. There was only just an engine meeting, and then things like this end up on the agenda again. Ferrari boss Frederic Vasseur urges his fellow team bosses to avoid a public fight over the issue. We have been open to this and avoided fighting, he said. Even if somebody thinks they have an advantage because of the battery or something else, this could be the worst case scenario for F1. The Frenchman makes clear that he supports the matter being discussed again on Thursday. We have never had such a big change in regulations because this is the first time we are developing a chassis, an engine, and making changes to the regulations at the same time, said Vasseur. It is a challenge for both the teams and the FIA, so let's discuss this week. Hopefully, we can find a decent compromise. I hope they can too. I am recording this on Friday, so they've already had this meeting. I've not heard anything about it yet. I'm sure everything will come out in the wash, particularly if something is interesting in terms of developments. But yeah, they can't do it. They keep talking about. I can't see them doing it. Honda would leave. Audi wouldn't join. Cadillac would actually support V10. As they're going to be a new team on the grid, and eventually they will make their own engines, and it's rumored to be 2028, might be around there, yeah. So there is that. Would Ford stay on board? Probably, given the fact that Red Bull are allegedly supporting it, and they are being backed by Ford next year, so I imagine Ford would be kind of on board with Red Bull with that. Ferrari, we know what Ferrari are like. I mean, the rumours about their engine not being very good for next year. There's no smoke without fire when it comes to these things, I do find that the rumours about Ferrari are usually true. When they are rumoured to be having an absolute rocket ship, they do. When they're rumoured to have a not very particularly fast car, that's usually the case. That was the heavy rumour coming into this season. I didn't want to believe it, but it appears to be true like it normally is. And yeah, Mercedes clearly want to have the new engine reg. So I think it'd be disastrous if they didn't go with it. I think it's all fully agreed now. I think everybody has signed the Concord agreement as well, aside from the FIA. I think the FIA are the only ones who haven't signed it, weirdly, but they will do. They've agreed to it in principle or something. I don't know, it's red tape and politics and stuff. Absolutely love that stuff, especially in F1. I don't see them going back to V10 engines for 2026. I could see them going back one day to V10 engines with the renewable fuels, the synthetic fuels, the non-polluting fuels. So there is that. So we'll see. But I don't see them going back on this personally. Famous last words, I know, but your thoughts in the comments below, guys. If you're a regular viewer on this channel, you will know that I'm not the biggest fan of sprint races, and you'll also know that I'm not the biggest fan of the Miami Grand Prix. However, the sprint race for this weekend's Miami Grand Prix was absolute chaos. Trying to sum this up in just 5 points is nigh on impossible, but I will do my best here for you guys. The sprint review for the 2025 Miami Grand Prix is on the way in this video. Like I said, absolute insanity from start to finish, even before the sprint race actually started, because we had a lot of wet weather in this one. The start was delayed because of that, and we actually get a victim of the wet weather as well. We'll talk about them further on in this video, but I did find it a bit farcical how we had to run 3 laps behind the safety car at the start of this race. Now, when they initially tried to start this race, it was in torrential rain conditions, proper Floridian, like subtropical rainstorm kind of territory, right? It was not suitable to be racing in those conditions, I don't think. We actually did get Charles Leclerc end up going off the track and out of the race before the race even started because of that. We'll talk about Ferrari a bit more in depth as this video goes on, but honestly, when they did get started, I think it should have just been run on safety car for literally that first lap, maybe. And even then, I think they really could have got going because halfway through the race, it was 10 laps into the 18-lap race, it was dry. The guys were going back into the pits for dry weather tires, so it clearly was not that unsafe. They were on the intermediates from the start of the race, so for me it should have been run immediately from the start. It should not have just been under the safety car for 3 laps. And again, you might say, well, 3 laps isn't that long, and yeah, normally I'd agree with you, but this isn't a Grand Prix, this is a sprint. There are only 18 laps in total in this race, and that's a 1/6 of the race distance. So I think it was quite farcical and quite pathetic from Formula 1, to be honest, to be like, no, we need to go under the safety car, it's not safe. It was clearly safe, but anyway, that's just my opinion. It's all, it's easy me saying this here in my office or whatever, doing this video, but from my perspective, I have to admit, it was disappointing around 3 laps under the safety car, maybe just 1 just to be absolutely sure, but 3 was a bit much. But anyway, when we did get going, there was a big mistake at the start for Kimi Antonelli. Now, Antonelli, of course, was starting from sprint pole position, the youngest ever driver to get a pole position of any kind in Formula 1, a good year and a half younger than what Sebastian Vettel, who was the previous record holder, managed it in his career. But he made a mistake at the start, and it was a big one as well. I mean, didn't get off the line that well. That was not his biggest mistake overall, though. Oscar Piastri took the lead from the start, but Antonelli didn't give up the corner. He should have given up the corner. Piastri, you know, he had the high ground. He had the inside line. He was pretty much alongside Antonelli. Antonelli came on the radio and said he pushed me off the track. He didn't. He had every right to do what he did, and he didn't push him off the track. That was far less egregious, and I don't think what Piastri did to Verstappen in Saudi Arabia was egregious, but it was far more tame than what he did to Verstappen a couple of weeks ago in Jeddah. So no problems for that whatsoever, in my opinion. And unfortunately for Antonelli, that meant that he fell behind not only Piastri, but also Lando Norris and Max Verstappen. He fell down to 4th place. He did eventually get his kind of mojo back together, but he wasn't that quick, really, for the majority of the race. George Russell was really hounding him for that 4th place, and even came on the radio to the team just like, look, I'm faster, you know, let me pass. But Mercedes did not do that. But possibly the most crucial point of the race, really, for Antonelli, was the pit stops. Oh, we've got to talk about the pit stops. 10 laps into the race, the cars were coming in, you know, the dry weather was here, and they wanted to get rid of the intermediate tyres. It was clearly faster to be on the dry tyres at that point. Tsunoda switched earlier on, Hamilton switched earlier on. It was really working out for both of them. Max Verstappen came into the pits and changed his tyres, and his team actually released him. But unfortunately, they released him into the path of Kimi Antonelli, and because of that, because of the Red Bull and the Mercedes pit boxes being next to each other, of course, 3rd and 4th place in the championship in the constructors last season, Antonelli missed the pit box because of that. And unfortunately, Max Verstappen, and you know that, you know, something's clearly wrong and that it's obvious that something's gone wrong here. When Max Verstappen isn't even sticking up for his team, he's like, guys, what the hell? What did you do? Because he didn't do anything wrong, Verstappen. You know, when that green light shines, you gotta go. This is Formula 1. Every 10th of a second counts. You go. You don't ask any questions. But it was very evident and obvious they shouldn't have released him at that point. And Max Verstappen damaged his front wing. That wasn't the real problem. We didn't have too much green flag running after that. Again, I'll explain why shortly. But yeah, Antonelli unfortunately missed the pit box because of that, and it seemed like it ruined his race, really. But somehow, because of the plethora, the absolute incredible amount of penalties at the end of this race, which I'm going to do a separate video going in depth to about all those penalties. There were like 4 or 5 of them, I think, in total. It just absolutely, the order changed around so much. But despite that, somehow Antonelli, who I think finished actually about 10th on the track, ends up classifying in P7, so he gets a couple of points after all that. Verstappen did get a 10-second penalty for the pit lane incident, and rightfully so, in my opinion, because it was a safety car finish. That meant he plummeted down the order. He was pretty much back of the field effectively, despite finishing 4th overall on the road, I believe, at the time. So yeah, incredible. But let's talk about the winner of the race. Oscar Piastri looked like he was going to do so for the longest time. He was looking rapid. He was clear of Lando Norris, but in the end, through the pit stops, through all the chaos, Lando Norris got ahead of him, and he kept that lead until the end. But yeah, Lando Norris, that is a big win. That is a huge... I said he needed to get a win in Miami. I didn't think he'd win the sprint race, but he did. And yeah, we'll see how he gets on tomorrow in the qualifying. I'm recording this actually after the qualifying, so do check out the review for that if you haven't already. It'll be out, depending on the platform, either soon after or around the same time as what this review of the sprint is. But yeah, huge win for Lando Norris in the sprint race. Only 1 point gain, but I think that's a real big psychological kind of advantage he's got now around this track, because of course we go racing on Sunday for the big one. But yeah, Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc. Let's talk about Ferrari very briefly here. So Charles Leclerc spun out before the start of the race. He got a DNS, unfortunately for him. And it looked as though Hamilton was going to have a poor day as well. He was in 6th place at the start of the race. He was being hounded for that by Alex Albon, and yeah, it looks as though he was really struggling. He was not doing well in the intermediate tyres. He changed early to get onto the dries, and it worked for him massively. He got P3 in the end. An incredible recovery drive from Sir Lewis. Some great guys. Great strategy from Ferrari. What is going on here? A good race in Miami and Ferrari with good strategy. what kind of parallel universe are we living in right now? But yeah, fair play to Hamilton, the only non-McLaren driver to be on the podium during the sprint race. Fantastic job by him, well deserved. And Fernando Alonso, let's talk about Alonso. Oh, it looked as though he was going to get his first points of the season. I think he was in P8 when this accident happened. Now, Carlos Sainz's crash, I think, is what the main reason why we had the safety car out at the end of the race. But we also had an incident around the same time with Liam Lawson. Now, Alonso, I can't remember whether he was overtaking Lawson or he was defending from Lawson, but those two running side by side. I'm pretty sure it was coming out of the final corner, and he got spun. But Lawson went off the track and trying to get back on again, did not want to yield the position. He spun Alonso out. Alonso into the wall, out of the race. Lawson continued. It looked as though he might get some points for P7, but he got a penalty eventually for that 5-second penalty, which I think is actually quite light, to be honest, but he will argue he was off the track and had every right to try and defend from there. But yeah, no points for Alonso, still on nil points, as is, in fact, Liam Lawson. Still no points for him either yet in Formula 1 in 2025. But yeah, absolutely crazy stuff. Right, qualifying for the Miami Grand Prix. Thankfully, a less eventful encounter than the sprint race. Do check out my sprint review if you haven't already. The sprint review is almost as long as the sprint itself. The absolute chaos that was ensuing during that one. But let's talk about qualifying for the Grand Prix on Sunday, because there were some surprise results here. Some good surprises and some bad surprises. So let's dive in, guys. The first bad surprise was Lewis Hamilton, getting a really impressive P3 in the sprint, which probably did flatter his pace, really. He was really struggling in the intermediate conditions, being slower, frankly, than Alex Albon, who was behind him for 6th place. He was in at the time, was Hamilton, but didn't even make it through to qualifying 3 here, not even through to the top 10 in P12 overall for Hamilton, which is poor. It is. It's not good. The margins are extremely fine in Formula 1 right now for qualifying in particular, but that's not good. You got to be making the top 10, really. His teammate did, Charles Leclerc, but in fairness, Charles Leclerc really struggled as well. That Ferrari does not look good here. Now, of course, Leclerc crashed out of the sprint race before the sprint race even began, and I believe Leclerc, in the end, actually got P8 during qualifying, so not really good for him, to be honest with you. Ferrari really struggling right now. One car only just into the top 10 and the other one just outside of it. Not positive at all. But positive times right now. Positive vibes for the newest father on the grid. I'm of course referring to Max Verstappen, who, despite a bit of a wobble in the first corner on his second run in qualifying, the guy has produced again. Back-to-back pole positions, 3 pole positions from the opening 6 rounds of the season, over 1 lap. Max Verstappen is an absolute danger. This guy is unbelievable. I mean, look, I never really doubted the kid's speed and his talent. This is reminding me a little bit. I mean, obviously he's had a lot of talent, but you know what I mean? He's showing it even more now. This is reminding me of the likes of, Ayrton Senna. I'm going to say it. This is reminding me of the Ayrton Senna days when in 1993 and 1992, the McLaren was not the best car on the grid, but he still won races. He still got pole positions. He still challenged on a regular basis. And around the right track, around street tracks in particular, just like with Verstappen in fairness, the guy was always a threat for the victory. Verstappen's doing the exact same thing. I cannot believe how good he's doing. He is absolutely something else. And massive respect. Pole position. Everybody was saying, he's a dad now. He's going to be slowed down. He's going to be more protective. Nah, no chance. No chance. He is an absolute danger, like I said, to this Formula 1 grid. And he's still in with that chance, in my opinion. No doubt in a chance for that 5th world title in a row. Only Michael Schumacher has done that before him. We will see as the season progresses. But the bad news for Max Verstappen is that there's a bunch of drivers that are looking very, very capable of upsetting his Sunday drive tomorrow, particularly Lando Norris. Lando, fair play to the guy. He's had a good Saturday. He won the sprint race, yeah, fortuitous for sure. But on merit today, he was Max Verstappen's closest challenger in qualifying. He got P2. Oscar Piastri, a little off it, maybe a little bit rocked by, the sprint race and only getting P2 in that, despite clearly being the fastest driver through pretty much the whole race. He's down in P4. Race pace is another thing at the end of the day. These guys, I'm sure McLaren are going to be better in terms of race pace. I would still back heavily one of them to win the race tomorrow. But Verstappen, he's done it before. He did it in Japan. He almost did it in Saudi, so we'll see what happens. But let's talk about the Mercedes cars. I mean, George Russell was not looking too great through Q3, but he still managed to get a top 5. 5th place again. The guy is consistently a top 5. But who got P3? Kimi Antonelli. Pole position for the sprint race. 3rd place, 2nd row. On the good side of the grid as well. Will he learn from his mistake on Saturday afternoon in the sprint, where of course he didn't yield when he should have done going through turn 1, and it cost him a bunch of places? I hope he will use that experience to good use at the end of the day. Make use of it, because for me, honestly, he's a real talent, and I really want to see more from him. So let's see how he gets on tomorrow for the actual Grand Prix. Who's best of the rest, though? I've not spoke about 6th and 7th. I kind of filled in all those gaps. It's Williams. My word, man. I mean, not a good sprint race from the end. Alex Albon, I think, was 5th or 6th on the road, and because of penalties to other drivers, he eventually got up to P4. But he got a penalty as well, so he ended up being out of the points. But the pace is definitely in that car. Carlos Sainz as well, crashing out of the sprint. A very bad Saturday afternoon in hindsight, I would say, for Williams. But the pace is definitely there in that car. And on merit, they are ahead of both Ferraris coming into this race. 6th place for Sainz, 7th for Albon. Let's hope that they can shore that up. They can convert that to a double point score, because they are 5th in the Constructors' Championship right now, and another double points will be great for them. Esteban Ocon, though, for Haas, their closest rivals, is in P9, so don't discount him doing a crazy strategy or something like Haas are really loving doing. They're doing a fantastic job, or Haas as well. So yeah, those are the 5 things that we learned from qualifying for the Miami Grand Prix. What were your main takeaways from the action on Saturday afternoon? It was a little later as well because of the delays earlier on, but yeah, have a fantastic day wherever you are in the world, guys. Let's hope for a great race tomorrow as well. I will be bringing out my review for the race on Monday morning. I won't be up late enough, unfortunately, and available to do the race review on Sunday evening, Sunday night here in the UK, but I will bring it to you on Monday morning. So have a fantastic day wherever you are in the world, guys. Like, share, comment, subscribe if you want to see more, and have a great day.